Let's talk about how stupid all that cultural stuff is getting. We got this story from CNN.com. Patton Oswalt defends his longtime friendship with Dave Chappelle. No, he didn't. He apologized. Patton Oswalt was doing a show. Dave Chappelle was doing a bigger show. After Patton Oswalt's show ended, Dave was like, yo, come in, do a set. We got a big arena. And so Patton Oswalt did. And you know what he was probably thinking? Patton Oswalt he's famous, but is he Dave Chappelle? No.
Nope.
So imagine you're like, you're in a band and people have heard of you and you maybe make six figures. It's all right. You're an opening act. And then all of a sudden, like Metallica at an arena is like, why don't you come in and do a set? You're going to be like, dude, an arena. And you're going to go super excited. But oh no, people are mad at you now. So Patton Oswalt posts this photo where he's like, look at me. I'm with my friend Dave. I've known him for so long. I'm so happy to be here. And he got attacked for it. People started saying that, he was hurting the LGBTQ community and things like that he doesn't understand the damage and the pain. So he takes this other photo on Instagram where he's got like a yellow notepad and he's writing down something, looking pensive in front of the mirror. And he's just like, if I had known the hurt that I would have caused. And he's like, to think I would tell other people they need to learn. Oh, you know what? Grow a spine, dude. You took a picture with your friend. That's it. Dave Chappelle's a funny guy. Grow up.
It's like he was punished and told by a teacher, write an essay why you're sorry for having a friend for decades. I mean, are you kidding me? There's also a lot of fake news spreading around this. There was a caption that Dave Chappelle stopped to help this elderly lesbian after her Suburban broke down. That was fake news. Didn't happen. Going around with that photo, just a meme out there. But it tells you what kind of times we're living in, where a person who was friends with someone for decades is apologizing for taking a photo with them. That's crazy.
You know what's funny is people started going back into Patton Oswalt's old stand-up routines. Ooh. And they found that Patton had made very, I would say it goes beyond just being transgressive. It was almost like mean-spirited jokes about transgender people, far worse than anything that Chappelle had ever done. This was just a few years ago. It was probably from 2014 or something. And people started posting that on Twitter, like, oh, Patton, no, you're so embarrassed of, Dave Chappelle and you were doing this. But I think that's part of the rhetorical move you have to make when you're in these circles, and that a few years ago, if you wanted to be like a bully, you would be making anti-transgender jokes or making anti-gay jokes or blah, blah, blah. Now, if you want to be a bully, you got to be woke, right? You got to be woke about it. You can still be really hateful and spiteful towards people, and you can still basically be that bully, but you're going to have to do it in a different direction. I think that's what Patton Oswalt, he's orienting himself to where he feels like his Hollywood milieu is now, which is that, Dave Chappelle is one of the most popular entertainers in America, but he may not be that popular among a certain subset of cultural liberals in Hollywood, right? The one segment of people in the news media and entertainment who actually did take a great deal of offense towards his comedy routines, which I think, honestly, if you polled most transgender people in America, I think most of them probably wouldn't even have been offended because most of them were in good taste. Mm-hmm. And if you look at his routines, he makes fun of everybody. And most of those people don't get offended at it because they understand the purpose and role of comedy and levity in society, right?
Yeah, well, that all seems to be going away, I guess, except for the fact, Netflix keeps signing more and more deals with Dave Chappelle. So let me just say this. Dave Chappelle is being signed to Netflix because Netflix has the data. Netflix looks at who's watching Dave Chappelle, and they're like, wow, everybody loves this guy. Let's give him more money. You see, Netflix doesn't make money off of advertisements. They make money off of memberships. If they book Dave Chappelle to do a headline, major special on Netflix, and they give him, how much are they paying him? It's like tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot.
An employee leaked the information to the general public.
Yeah, wasn't it like 25 million or something?
It was a lot, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Man, you know what? Look, I know Dave's the best of the best. And it takes a lot of work to do these specials, but that much money for that much work, it's just like, wow, when you're good, right? But Netflix is thinking, we are going to gain more paying subscribers by booking this guy than we will lose over any outrage. We've known this. The leftist outrage, the faux complaints, it's like 30 people on Twitter who won't stop talking, and they convince people, like Patton Oswalt. He gets convinced, oh, everyone's mad at me because he got 30 people constantly spamming him over and over and over again. Reminds me of that Family Guy joke where the guy's like, we got 7 phone calls last night, which means 70 billion people are upset. That's what it is. So Dave Chappelle is going to keep getting booked. We're going to keep laughing. But you guys, I don't know if you guys saw his last special. They're getting to him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was defensive. He spends a lot of, I would say the past few specials, he spends a portion of the time sort of defending himself against claims being made against him, right? Which is not really where you want to be as a comedian. Nope. You want to focus on the jokes, on the entertainment. It does sound like, if I was him, I'd avoid some of those jokes in the next special, focus on some different topics, or just take some time off. But, he's in that space now. And I think it is, again, that small minority of persistent, angry people can do this to you if you're in certain social spaces, even if the vast majority of America, I think, understands that Dave Chappelle's always been a little bit risque. He's always been a little bit edgy. But he's there to make you laugh. He doesn't actually hate anybody. He doesn't try to make anyone hate anybody. But that's where a lot of these spaces are now. And that's why someone like Patton Oswalt feels like he has to apologize for a friendship with probably one of the most popular entertainers in the entire country.
But they made Dave Chappelle get serious, and that's what really kind of affected everything. And you bring up a small amount of people. We have to understand that these small amount of people have a lot of institutional power, especially when it comes to the corporate media, literally promoting a Netflix protest, speaking about it. But when you talk about something and say, there's going to be a big protest here, there's going to be a protest here, you're bringing attention to it.
Just to clarify, though, when we're talking about a small amount of people, we're talking about, John, at John96321 on Twitter. It's these random profiles where they have no followers. They're not necessarily bots. I don't think they're bots. They could be sock puppets. But someone like Patton Oswalt, you look at his tweet about this, and he's just inundated with, you can really only see maybe 30 to 50 tweets or whatever, unless you really want to scroll through everything. And they're like, do better. I can't believe you would do this. Dave's hurting us. And you're like, that's probably 30 to 50 people. Out of the millions of people who follow Patton Oswalt, how many are logging onto Twitter, clicking his post, and then complaining? 0.001%, 0.0001%. But people see these things and they assume that, wow, everybody's mad. I better talk about something, making it worse. Dave Chappelle gets dragged into it. He got serious.
And there was a CNN article generated about this, right? There was actually a CBC journalist, a Canadian Broadcast Corporation journalist, who just resigned from her post. And she just wrote a Substack piece about why. And one of the complaints that she had was that, you guys kept running these articles about how people find Dave Chappelle offensive. Why didn't we ever go to the vast majority of people who just like him and ask them what they think, right? The media may be a small number of people, but it is a powerful institution. And they're going to be writing articles about you. You know that someone's going to be taking issue with it. Even if it's a few dozen people at Netflix, it's going to be portrayed as a massive staff revolt. That is a headache in and of itself.
Yep. Imagine the narrative being that Netflix knows their audience doesn't like Dave Chappelle, that people are greatly offended and don't watch it, and they booked him anyway. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, they're booking him because he's bringing in members. He's bringing in money. Now, for me, I don't have a Netflix account ever since they did that thing with the cuties.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. Nope. Did they double down on it?
Sure did.
It's bad enough Netflix has that show about... I don't even want to talk about this show.
Yeah.
A bunch of mainstream celebrities talking about kids in adult situations, and that is putting it very lightly. I'm surprised they have that show in the first place. I don't know anybody who watches it, to be completely honest. And for the most part, we're not like a staunch conservative suit-wearing TP USA kind of place around here. We have skaters, skateboarders, rollerbladers, punk rock, music.
Contrarians.
Relative contrarians to a certain degree, and people aren't just being like, oh, turn on, Big Mouth on Netflix. That's a show I like. People are like, that's nasty. I don't know what they were thinking with that show. It's just whatever. But hey, look, I'm not interested in watching a show like that or watching cuties. And if they want to keep doubling down on that stuff, I'm not going to be interested in being a member or subscribing to a platform like that. You know what I mean?
And I think that raises a lot more controversy, especially with the cuties. A lot of people not signing up then compared to Dave Chappelle. That's only from my perspective. I could be wrong, but again, they continue to work with Dave Chappelle. That's a big sign that obviously the general public, a large, vast amount of people like his comedy. They want to hear edgy stuff. They want to hear stuff that lightens the situation. And when you're able to joke about issues that the establishment doesn't want you to talk about, if you're able to joke around serious issues, you're able to, of course, make people relate to them better. You're able to, of course, get rid of a lot of the stigma, a lot of the hate, a lot of the negative energy around it. I would say comedians are absolutely crucial towards bettering society, bettering our discourse. And this is an effort to, as we were talking about earlier, to destroy that conversation and to create more echo chambers.
I feel like almost the way that comedy is getting around this a little bit is a lot of these networks are bringing in either foreign or I think maybe more cultural niche cultural subjects and actors and producers to produce a lot of the same stuff. Like, if you watch some of the foreign programming on Netflix, I think you'll find much kind of racier jokes or much edgier, more risque material than I think what you might see in a Dave Chappelle stand-up. And I think part of that is that you kind of get an out, right? Like if it's foreign produced, if it happens to be international comedy or international cultures, maybe these same subcultures of Americans in these companies and institutions and media give it a little bit more of a pass, right? Which is kind of funny. Like if you have to watch like a Korean drama to be able to like see funny comedy about topics that people want to be transgressive about, but it almost feels like you have to do that sometimes.
There's a video on YouTube
that
we bring up every so often. It is from August 9th, 2010. It is from The Onion, and it is titled "Overcome Stress by Visualizing It as a Greedy, Hook-Nosed Race of Creatures."
Oh my.
It's The Onion, and I can't even tell you what the jokes are about because
we can't play this.
I'm wondering if we can because it's on YouTube itself. But it's a woman, and she's like, when you have money troubles, visualize a greedy, hook-nosed race of creatures. And it's very obviously like a demeaning picture, like a very disgusting picture of a stereo. Like I don't even want to get into it. The point is, I think people understand the joke the Onion's making here.
Yes. Terrible.
And this has got 1.5 million views. YouTube still has it up. This is what comedy was just 10 years ago for these networks. Now comedy's turned into like what South Park did the joke with Jimmy. He's like, "Hey, what's the deal with Mexican food? It's excellent cuisine, and I love it." Like it's not even a joke.
Comedy,
it's just I mean, actually, it is kind of funny when you're making fun of it.
Well, one show I really like is called Rami, and I don't know if you guys have seen Rami, but basically it's about it stars an Egyptian American who's also the writer and showrunner, and he lives in New Jersey, and he has an Egyptian American family. He's trying to grow up in the States with kind of these cultural clashes, and like he has an uncle who's like very anti-Semitic and like constantly making Jew jokes. But he still loves them, even though he kind of tells him that's like not right to do that. But like, yeah, that's the cultural context you have to go to discuss something like that, because like it's not openly, like if the character was like white, American, or like Christian or something, like they wouldn't be allowed to have an uncle who does that and like talk about it and like actually normalize it and let people like talk around their differences, because you have to actually cast a character like that and have a showrunner like that to be actually able to broach these issues now. Because there's so much sensitivity in talking about cultural differences, right? If you watch some of those older shows like Good Times or The Jeffersons from the 60s and 70s, they openly talked about like racial stereotypes of like whites and blacks between each other. That's how they broke down a lot of the difference. Now it's just like you just have to say the party line. Like you break these things down by just beating things into people's heads rather than actually letting them be open about their prejudices and talking them through, right?
I mean, you look at Patton Oswalt as a person. And then you look at Dave Chappelle as a person, and I'm just like, I kind of know who I'd rather watch if I was given an opportunity. The whiny crybaby who's like, I'm so sorry for all the pain, or Dave Chappelle who doubles down. Granted, he got a little bit defensive on his last special for sure, but absolutely was like, I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm going to say what I want. And I'm like, yeah, that's more appealing to me. It's more honest.
Well, that's why they're trying to get rid of him. Anyone speaking truth is deemed as a heretic in this new kind of cult of woke, and he's the one willing to speak the larger truths that a lot of people are thinking but too afraid to say. And we're pretty far away from the days of George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Bill Hicks, but man, did those individuals make comedy great, make the First Amendment something that a lot of people stood behind, and these larger ideas that they represented, the effect that they were able to have on people was so important, and I don't think enough people attribute them to the larger successes that we have as a country, as a nation, as a culture, because of these individuals that stood on their principles, and in some instances were even arrested for it. So shouts out to those individuals. If you haven't heard of them, if you're someone who never heard of these names, look them up, look up their old videos, and be prepared to be astonished at the larger truth bombs that they were dropping on people that absolutely have awakened humanity.
You have a list of names?
I just listed 3 of them. I could probably think of some more. What are your favorite comedians? I mean, Eddie Murphy, too. Eddie Murphy was also able to go to places that a lot of people saw as extremely controversial. Right. He doubled down, tripled down on it, especially when it came to Bill Cosby. Eddie Murphy called out Bill Cosby way before anybody else in a very, very important way. Who's your guys' favorite? Linda?
My favorite comedians are not really all that transgressive. I never really got into George Carlin. But I feel like every comedian has some form of history of offensive jokes that they now are walking back. And I've always felt that a lot of these comedians have made a point of pulling up the ladder behind them, which I really hate to see. I would like to see some of them with some form of character, which is why I really liked Dave Chappelle. And I do hope this is not getting to him. But
or all these comedians can just be like, shut up, I don't care, I'm going to make jokes.
Yep.
Well, in the 1990s, Congress brought a series of people to testify and grill them. Some of them were the heads of labels for musicians and artists, recording artists. Others were heads of like video game firms like Sega of America and so on and so forth. And universally, what they would say is like, this is our freedom of expression. We don't think that this is going to promote real world violence or real world misogyny, real world, et cetera, et cetera. This is a place that people go to escape, so on and so forth. Now, those very same firms, when they're grilled by Congress, when they're grilled by the media, typically they concede something, right? Typically they back down or they try to appease the opposition. I think the culture of their response has changed a lot in the face of a lot of these protests, and I'm not sure what the difference is between now and the 1990s, but you'll see, Tipper Gore, Bob Dole, Joe Lieberman, Bill Clinton, these people all going after these companies, and the company's just responding that it's our right to be able to speak freely, and it's entertainment. It's not real life, right?
Yeah. People in the comment section are bringing up Andrew Dice Clay, Lenny Bruce, Norm Macdonald, and also of course Bob Saget. And Bob Saget, right there. I mean, if there's something that's going to raise a couple hairs on your head, it's definitely the comedy of Bob Saget. So there's been a number of individuals, and I think the reason why we go to comedians is because they're able to talk about these issues that so many people are afraid to talk about. And there's not only a layer of kind of controversy. People are also talking about Patrice O'Neal. He was also really just an amazing comedian. Mel Brooks as well. But they're able to hash things out through a way that is bringing people together instead of dividing them. And if you want to push the divide and conquer agenda effectively, you have to get rid of comedy. You have to get rid of satire, because it's one of the most effective weapons against the establishment, against the ruling elite, against the very powerful. Because if you mock them, you take away all of their power and all of their influence, and we need more mockery than ever.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.